Hey everyone, it's me again. I wanted to take a little bit of time to give an update, maybe what you might call a state of supply chain. I recently crossed the 10,000 follower threshold on LinkedIn, and I wanted to take that opportunity to kind of reflect, catch people up on maybe what they've missed or what they don't yet know about supply chain. Try to fill in some holes or gaps in knowledge of what supply chain is all about and a little bit of where we're going. And I hope that I can tell a little bit of a story here and maybe inspire some folks to see that if I can do something like this, so can you. So last year, 2024, my goal was to hit 5,000 total followers. I started off 2024 with like 1,200 or 1,500. My goal is to get to 5,000. And I hit that around November, December. And at the beginning of this year, 2025, I set a goal that I wanted to hit 10,000. I gave myself a full year to go from 5 to 10 and ended up being able to achieve that by August. So things were going really, really good and in a super positive direction. And I know that followers and stuff is just a vanity metric to many folks. You might say, well, what about the quality over quantity and that sort of stuff? And I would fully agree. But if you kind of look here at the vision and the mission statement here, having connections and having a community is an important way of accomplishing the goals here. So I also kind of want to be able to try to show that what I'm attempting to do here, and I think that what I'm doing is simple. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. And for those content creators and those folks that are my role models, kudos to you because it takes lots of consistency and effort to make it happen because it's simple, but it's not easy. And so just want to do a quick review of what supply chain is all about and what's coming up and what we've been doing. So you can see here the values for supply chain are collaboration, authenticity, curiosity, and energy. These are the things that I want to make sure that I bring to every conversation and to everything I do and everything that the supply chain as an organization does as well. The vision, it's taken me a while to kind of figure out how to put this into terms, but I want for supply chain to be the tide that lifts all boats in the industry. And some folks would say that's quite ambitious. And I would say, yes, that's what a vision statement is all about, right? And then lastly, the mission statement is really to be a creative, connected, and capable resource. And I often tell folks that I put creative first because I think creativity is what wins the day at the end of the day. Not only in supply chain, not only in business, but in so many different facets of life. Being able to be creative and take various pieces of information and knowledge that you've picked up along the way and forming it into a new idea to come up with a novel solution, something creative. I think that's really the differentiator in the market and any market. And that's what I really want for supply chain to be known for, is for being that creative, energetic, authentic, and collaborative brand and entity. So some time ago, I created this Venn diagram to try to give a bit of a visual of what it is that supply chain is doing and what different sort of things that we do, where they fit on this roadmap and in this mission of being creative, connected, and capable. And in the following slides, I'll be able to show kind of a little bit more detail what each of these is. So I took a moment to try to create a graphic or a visual of what this has looked like going from being a logistics and supply chain major back at University of North Texas, having a couple of internships and working at a couple of 3PLs and manufacturers and startups over the years, to kind of stepping out on my own in September 2022 and starting this thing called Supply Chaney Consulting. And then in April 23, starting a freight brokerage business under SPI Logistics. And then kind of just try to document at what point did I decide that doing something in the social media space was something I wanted to do. And really, this graph right here is just a screenshot from LinkedIn for the past like almost 2 years here. And what it does is it shows from this, each of these little bars here is how many new followers I've gotten per day over the past almost 2 years. And so you can see in 2023, there was zero intent of doing anything in the way of being engaged in LinkedIn or having any kind of social media presence. I don't know why there's this one random spike of a day where I had like 40 new followers in one day. I don't know what happened on that day at all. But at some point, while I was kind of doing some consulting stuff, I decided that I wanted it to try to do something different. And that's when I started the YouTube channel. As you can see here, August 2023. You can see that not a lot happened there. And then as 2024 started, I started kind of going to some conferences and doing a little bit of stuff. And it was about that time that I launched the calendar of events, where I realized that if I'm going to be this resource, right, in the industry, then I want to create those resources. And one that I thought I could create was to aggregate the different organizations' calendars just here in DFW, because you have the supply chain, the transportation, and multiple other, and ISM, you have multiple organizations just here in DFW that were all hosting happy hours and panels and luncheons and all that sort of stuff, but on different calendars. So I wanted to bring them all together. So kind of launched that in February of 2024. And right about that time is when I attended MODEX 2024. And I really came up with what my mission statement was going to be. And that was to be a creative, connected, and capable supply chain resource. You can see right here. And as I kind of traveled through time a little bit more and started to try to deliver on this mission, I realized that the folks that really had something going on were the folks that had a podcast. So, everything is logistics. Chris Jolly's podcast that he has going on every day, and Kevin Lawton in the New Warehouse. And so I started seeing that these folks that had a voice in the industry had a podcast. So I launched that May 2024. Then after some time, decided to take the next step and launch the Supply Chain Social Club just about 1 year ago, in September of 2024. You might say August as well. After that, I got an invitation to attend the EDGE conference in Nashville last year, just as a media badge, just invited to go create some content and video. And that was really my first big opportunity to try to do this thing of creating video and content and interviewing people. And that was really my first ability and opportunity to do that. And another sort of light bulb moment happened at that point in time, which was, I think I really like events. And I think conferences and events is like a space that I can really go try to do something with. After that, I got to attend Pack Expo in Chicago, and that's actually the first time I ever met Chris Pride in real life after years of knowing him online and virtually. And toward the end of 2024, DC Velocity or AGiLE Business Media or Supply Chain Exchange, however you might know them as, approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in working together next year to cover some events? And of course I said yes. And so that was right at about the time that I hit that 5,000 follower mark on LinkedIn. And you can see kind of the result of the efforts of these different things that I've been building to add in to accomplish the mission throughout the year in 2024. Early in the year 2025, Sergere, who noticed me at the EDGE conference in Nashville, approached me and wanted to partner up. And so they came on board and they have been the podcast sponsor for the year for 2025. And that's really the first sponsorship that I've had. And then CSCMP shortly thereafter, about the same time, also said, hey, we're interested in working together. And so CSCMP sponsors the calendar of events. And so it was just this really organic sort of move from just creating things for the fun and joy of creating them toward being able to create some kind of bit of income from doing those same activities. And it was really quite magical. As we got into the early parts of 2025, I attended Manifest and Link in Orlando, held by Rila. Again, these were opportunities to try this film, this videography, this interviewing, this social media type presence and content creation in the world, and really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of folks liked it as well. Moving along a little bit further, working with Kevin Lawton, we had our very first Supply Chain Social Club live event. Even though the Supply Chain Social Club was launched with the intent of creating virtual events and spaces for people to meet and connect, there was some buzz and a little bit of kind of peer pressure from the folks attending the virtual events and saying we should do this in person. And so finally made that happen at ProMat in Chicago. And again, partnered with Kevin to put that event on. And since then, we've held a couple of others. And then we kind of fast forward to about the middle of the year, and I really wanted to try to be intentional of growing my network and sort of reach into Europe. And back to back had the opportunity to go to the Change conference, which was in Brussels, and the CSCMP European conference, which was in Verona, within the same week, and be able to kind of do this thing that I've really started to love and enjoy doing, which is just being at conferences and capturing the energy and enthusiasm and the insights from those conferences and share those to folks that are not there. Some might call this a FOMO creator, right? A little bit later on in the year, started incubating this idea of launching a newsletter. And I took a little while and worked with other folks to try to come up with how can I launch a newsletter that is true to my brand and how I want to go about doing things, but also doesn't just get lost in a sea of LinkedIn newsletters that's out there, right? So that happened earlier in the year, about 2 months ago now. And then right after that, we've got like the 50th podcast episode milestone was hit. And just within a couple of weeks ago, was able to accomplish that 10,000 followers on LinkedIn milestone. Maybe over these next couple screens here, I would like to just show a little bit more detail about what those different things are. And so if you don't know about them, you can kind of learn more about them. And if you already know about them, you can kind of maybe hear some of the story about them. So the very first thing that you saw I mentioned was that YouTube channel. I would just say that YouTube content, video content in B2B is tough. It's tough. And so for the most part, I use YouTube specifically as like a place to store and archive video content. But most of all my video content and everything and podcasts is all really geared toward being content on LinkedIn. And I think that the real ability and the differentiator of what I'm working toward when it comes to video content is very, very fast deployment, so that content and video that's shot on day one goes live and is published and is aired on day two. Speed to deployment as being a really important thing. And then again, just a shout out there to AGiLE, who was so kind to partner with me throughout this year and help me to get out to more conferences and events and partner together to bring that video content to everybody. The next thing that I did was this industry events calendar, which really forced me to go redo my website and create a new website that had the ability to have a calendar page on it and like a built-in calendar bit. So I used to just video. I would sit here in my office every Sunday night and do a video overview of here's all the events coming up here pretty soon. And within the last couple months, I've transitioned that to a Monday morning live stream show, which I kind of call something like Good Morning America, but only for supply chain events and only on Mondays. But bringing on folks that are hosting or speaking or having something to do with conferences and events in the industry and bringing them on to talk about those events, along with just what other events are going on in the industry. Now, kind of what we're doing is working on actually an AI agent project to use AI to help create and drop these industry events onto the calendar with a human in the loop. Up to this point, I've had interns that have done this, or I've kind of manually created all these myself. It's a good amount of work, and it's a really low-hanging fruit as far as like a repeatable process that you can train an AI agent to do. And so I'm really excited to be working on that right now, and going to share everything about how that has come to life. A quick shout out to those interns that I've had, Madison, Polly, Ankita, Nicole, Marina, and Amelia. These are almost all of them were all marketing majors at various universities here in Texas or elsewhere that contributed and volunteered some of their time in an unpaid internship type of way, and either helped to update and keep the calendar updated or created social media posts. And so just a shout out and a thank you to them. The next thing that I started was the podcast, focused on sharing the experience and expertise of people from all across the supply chain. Every conversation focuses on three main areas in a very similar pattern. the personal story of the person I'm talking to, their professional story, their career steps, if you will, and then some technical conversation about what they do on a day-to-day basis. I 100% try to focus on folks that can bring a thought leadership perspective, and 100% try to avoid a sales pitch type of podcast. We've got nearly 60 of these done. It's available on all podcast platforms. I think the podcasting is a great part of a multi-channel advertising or promotion campaign. You should not rely just on a podcast episode if you're out there trying to get your brand or your name out there. And also, just a shout out to, again, Sergier, who reached out to me earlier in the year and said, let's do something together. Let's sponsor your podcast. So big shout out and thanks to them. The next thing that I stood up after the podcast was the Supply Chain Social Club. And the first event was just about almost a year ago as of this recording right now. And the mission was to foster meaningful connections in the industry in efficient, effective, and fun virtual events using this really cool platform. At the time, it was called Remo.co, and they've since been acquired by events.com. So now they're part of the events.com family. But we've connected thousands of people across the globe in the industry, from procurement and sourcing at the Source events, the folks that are in global trade and compliance in the Global Trade Cafe event, and then the warehousing folks in the series that we call Warehousing After Dark. And the go to market on this whole idea was to just partner with people that have a community. And a big shout out to Kevin Lawton for being that first person with a community and an audience to partner up. And we created the Warehousing After Dark series together. And you can kind of see here in the top right, like we've had a number of partners that have come on, and we've been able to help share their story and their brand with the folks that attend the events. And I think it's a two-way benefit. It's a benefit for the attendees to be able to hear what some of these solutions providers and vendors and stuff have to provide in the industry. And it's obviously beneficial to the sponsors because they get exposure to people that are interested in learning and hearing about what they have to talk about. And now it's kind of at the point where we're able to host some of our own Supply Chain Social Club events, with our very first own pool party going on this week, actually coming up, where it's just open to everybody. So from planning, procurement, manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, everyone, a full end-to-end Supply Chain Social Club event. Also, a quick shout out to Chris Pride, I mentioned earlier. From day zero, when I was very, very first coming up with Supply Chain Social Club, I reached out to Chris and asked him for help because he was the platform expert. And he came on and accepted my invite to be the co-founder for the club, and has been really instrumental in making a lot of the behind the scenes work happen and make these events really come to life. The latest thing that I've launched is a weekly newsletter called the Supply Chaney Digest. And the idea here was to take those core values of collaboration and authenticity and figure out how to weave that into a newsletter. And so I reached out to my network, those folks that are content creators, those folks that consistently put out opinions and views and news and information, and assembled them into a bit of like a newsroom type of setup, where we've got 8 different topics that we get covered every week on every Friday, ranging again from procurement to marketing to transportation and warehousing and global trade. And the cool thing is that these folks are all someone that you can listen to, watch, follow, engage, message with directly. It's not a bunch of AI agent bots that are out there doing this. These are real people that are in the trenches, that are subject matter experts or podcasters or consultants or CEOs. And so it's really awesome to be able to take the knowledge and information of what these contributors all bring and bring them together once a week and share their stories and their information with you all. So, and a big shout out to Curtis Pogue, who is actually, if we look back, you'll see him on the podcast. He was the Best Freight Friends episode #1 on the podcast. We've been longtime friends, both have the same degree in logistics and supply chain management. Curtis went the truck and transportation route with his career. I went largely the warehouse route, but he is my right-hand man at Supply Chain, at Supply Chaney, and currently right now looks after the production and administration of the podcast. He's recently taken on and runs everything on the publishing side for the newsletter, and is just a really great brainstorming partner and strategic thinking partner, and is helping me to take a lot of these ideas that are in my head and go make them happen, just like the newsletters. So a quick little glimpse of like what is next. The focus is going to continue to be on conferences, events, and networking, with a goal of being an authority on these in the industry. I don't want to say the authority, that might be a little bit too grand. So I'm going to just work on being an authority on conferences, events, and networking in the supply chain industry. And we'll be able to kind of share a little bit more of what exactly that looks like. But for now, just know that if there's a conference or an event or networking thing going on in the industry, if I don't know about it, and if I'm not covering it or sharing about it or talking about it, then I am not meeting my own internal goals. So also, I want to continue to collaborate and build things with others. And whenever January 2025 rolled around this year and we were setting New Year's resolutions, writing a book was one of those things that was on my to-do list for 2025. And so again, I want to do this in a collaborative type manner. So kind of be on the lookout for that. Goal is to have that done by the end of this year. Also, this is really turning in from a kind of a guy with a camera and a microphone walking around and doing things to a real business of sorts. And so this is really my first real kind of business to ever really build. And so I'm spending a lot of time investing in trying to figure out how to make a proper business with the right systems and processes and people in place to do what I do and what we do on a regular basis, consistently, day after day, having fun and being creative and accomplishing that mission. And then lastly, I think the last thing that's next here is just accepting and leaning into the fact that this idea of Supply Chaney is evolving into a bit of like a media and marketing company, even though that's not exactly what I ever imagined would ever happen, but that kind of feels like what's happening. And so, I need to look at and spend time learning from folks that are in that space, and kind of figuring out how I continue to evolve and innovate to add value into the conversations happening in the industry, and to just make a difference in the world, really, of supply chain professionals and practitioners. And I know this took a minute, but I wanted to, for those who are interested in knowing what's been going on, what's next in the world here at Supply Chaney, for those that are supporters or maybe just curious about hearing and learning about what's going on, I appreciate each and every one of you for your support, and just looking forward to doing fun things with fun people in supply chain. And that's really what it's all about.